Hello, hello, welcome one and all. We are in for another week of Academy, week 4, coming at ya. I'm Mad Magical, joined in by the one and only Crumbs. Crumbs, it's always good to be on the cast with you. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Magical. Glad to be reunited, and we got some really good Academy games today because we've got some clashes at the top that everybody's always interested in. And we also have some substitutions, some swap-a-roos happening with players that make the mid-season of Academy even more thrilling.
I love seeing a lot of these changes, what teams are trying to adapt, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them. We've already seen a couple of those substitutions happening in the LCS. It's now starting to kind of coalesce and merge into the Academy. Last week, I believe, TakeOver took over for Sword on TSM Academy, and I believe just today we actually had that Dignitas Academy, called Dignitas Quantum Academy, had also announced that they have Will, a really young player, 16-year-old jungler player stepping into the Academy role, which should be really interesting to witness.
Yeah, we got Will. Last week we had Dokla as well. I believe we'll also have King coming back to the Cloud9 lineup. So there's a lot of different pieces moving around with the Academy team. So just like the LCS teams adapt to these mid-season changes, the Academy teams will also have to slot these in. And I can't help but wonder who will actually be able to implement these quicker, because it seems like Cloud9 is the obvious answer to having no hiccups whatsoever to bringing back their old AD carry, whereas everyone else is starting with somebody new.
I completely agree, and it'll be interesting too going into the schedule on who they play. You talked about the battle at the top. Cloud9 Academy on the other stream will be taking on 100 Thieves Academy, both of them fighting for the #1 spot. But here on this channel, we start off with TSM Academy, Evil Geniuses Academy, the battle right in the middle that I'm actually really hyped for. But then after that, we also got Golden Guardians Immortals, two teams trying to fight their way back up and make it into guaranteeing that they're going to go to the Proving Grounds tournament, while at the end, to finish off the entire day, Team Liquid Academy, the LG Academy.
Yeah, a lot of these games have been really close when these teams have faced off against other teams in last week, whether it was a lot of 1-1s, some occasional 2-0s, but for the most part, the best of two has really delivered. And even the teams that are at the bottom, like Golden Guardians going up against Immortals, to actually have had some really close showings. So don't be completely guided by the standings at home. The team's individual games may not have given them those significant wins, but they are improving, and the record for almost every team speaks less than how good they have become.
Well, and isn't that the whole idea of Academy growing, learning, and being able to come together as a team? And you talked about there's a lot of change-ups coming in for a lot of these squads, so it'll be interesting to see how they're going to be able to play. We start off the day with TSM Academy and Evil Genius Academy. And I like this matchup to start off because, one, you have Evil Genius Academy, the team with the most 1-1s in this entire summer split so far, with 5 total. They have won one of the best of twos, where they went 2-0 back in week 1. But ever since then, it's been 1-1 across the board, while TSM Academy started off really rough into the summer split and have been slowly working their way back up the standing.
And I think the big change for TSM, like you mentioned at the top of the show, TakeOver coming in for Sword. He's looking good. He's looking like he's got a lot of relevant meta champions, had some really fun interviews with him. And I think that this can be a player that, with how quickly he has slotted into the team, it was even hard to think if the lack of synergy would be there, because he looked like he fit right into the team. If you told me that TakeOver was a name change from Sword and that he was just playing better, then I would have believed you, because that's kind of what it looked like for the TSM lineup. So this should make the team stronger overall, and I think it's made it a bit more relevant with the meta patch last week. Really love seeing the adaptation of the set into the mid lane. It's something that has been super dominant in Academy, and I fully expect to see that going forward.
Yeah, and it is their second change-up. They had the initial start change with Hyper stepping in for Babip, and now with TakeOver, like you said, it just feels like they are working better as a team. While on the flip side, Evil Geniuses Academy have been a team that has been rock solid since the beginning of spring. They've pretty much stayed the same, except for Team Luke stepping in just recently. But they have been a team that has looked really good together, especially when you think back to last spring in the Proving Grounds tournament, with how far they were able to go into the tournament, having had a very rough spring split to start it all off.
And this Evil Genius team, I think, is slowly getting better despite the consistent 1-1 performances. Individually, the players are making less mistakes, and that's making the team look better overall. I think of contracts when I think of where the carries are in Evil Genius's academy, because right now, a lot of the junglers can be played super aggressively with the intent to putting a lot of gold into them and then carrying through team fights afterwards. The likes of the Dianas, the Fiddlesticks, and those are been the more popular ones as answers to how prevalent Rumble has become. And these are champions that Contracts has been thriving on. He can still bust out the Nidalee. People have caught on to it and have been really dropping bans his way. So he's not able to play it. He's forced to pick up new champions, but still delivering on them.
Yeah, and I honestly, even going on to that Nidalee pick, it's really funny to see how many teams have been prioritizing banning Renekton just to stop that. Just be like, I don't want to see the Nidalee be a possibility for Contracts to be able to play with that powerful combination of the Renekton on top of it. And so TSM Academy, they have a lot that they can try to see if they want to work with, but if they do start on red side, that means what we've been pretty much seeing constantly throughout this summer split so far is they have to burn one ban at least onto Gwen.
Gwen is slowly guaranteeing herself on the ban table, because it was funny. We started off with teams not banning her a lot because it felt like not everybody actually was able to play Gwen, let alone play her well. And so sometimes it went through multiple rotations in the champion select. Sometimes it wasn't even picked at all, those rare few games. But every team knew that they had to play Gwen. And so even though at the start she might have lost some games, people didn't pick her, as everybody recognizes the value of Gwen, they're slowly picking it up. And now that we're halfway through the split or near it, every team can be expected to play Gwen at a proficient level. And so the ban of Gwen becomes even more common.
I do still find it funny that she's actually only made it her way onto the Rift 4 times in our Academy split so far. And the only win she has, she's only won one of those 4 games, was Tony Top playing it. So if it is left open, Tony Top very much will blind take that and has clearly shown that as one of the greater proficiencies on this newer champion to be able to play. But like you said, a lot of players have been getting more accustomed to how she plays and being able to really build a composition around her, so I doubt we're going to see her.
I like what we've seen from Tony thus far because it tells me that he's focusing on what he's good at and not on what he thinks is entirely the most meta pick possible. I'm thinking back to the game where he played Jax. Just knowing that he was a very good Jax before and that the situation maybe allowed it if he played really well and they still got a win off that one, reassures me that the team is allowing the players to play through what they think is the strongest, giving the players the confidence to back up the picks that they're good at, and that can only benefit them in the long run. Giving more confidence to a player allows them to expand their champion pool, and as a result, be able to surprise your opponent more with what you can play and be more flexible within the draft that we know is so important right now, with the meta involving multiple champions that we just did not have before that can be flexed through multiple roles. Just having the ability to rotate between picks of different styles makes your team so much deadlier.
And as we load up, get ready for our draft here in this best of 2, we see Nocturne and Tom Kench, actually the first ban out of TSM Academy. I know a lot of people are waiting for that mini rework that Tom Kench is getting, but he has still shown that he is quite a menace when paired up with Senna on 11-12.
Yeah, this is a ban that I think will slowly have to be allowed through because we have seen a lot of answers to it from teams across the globe. It's not necessarily a permaban, but if you're going with just relentlessly hard engage, a single devour is not enough to save a member. And so that's what we've seen work really well against Tom Kench. That is currently prioritized by many teams. So TSM Academy is not going to want to go in that direction, though. And so banning it here on red side is telling me we're more interested in counter picks. We're less interested in these 5v5 team fights. And it seems like the Gwen that we just spoke about is available, but so is Akali and so is Lee Sin. So TSM Academy could snatch those 2 up right now. There's just so many power picks, Magical. I love the fact that the decision making inside Champion Select is really about what the pairings are and less about you giving away something that's overpowered.
I mean, I'm glad you kind of mentioned that because we look across regions. There's the Lee Sin, but Vars, Ezreal are a couple picks that I kind of think of that have really been starting to make their way towards being one of the meta champions in the bot lane. Tristana has been holding a great lane stay. Kaisa, we have Leona, Nautilus. There's so many of these picks all across the board. Rumble, Diana, Gwen, we already mentioned before, that have just been left open because there's only so much you can actually ban.
And there's only so much you can pick right away. You really have to prioritize exactly what you want here. And so the Tristana from TSM Academy, with her ability to engage and disengage, is just going to tell you that this is a pick that you want in order to protect yourself against the Akali. You want someone that can have self-peel, and the Ezreal is going to be weaker in the early laning phase. So the Tristana not only gives you a stronger laning phase if it's just going to be tank support versus tank support, but on red side, there's added value in being able to flex her into the mid lane if Takeover wants to select her, as EGA Academy has already shown their hand with both solo lanes. So TSM Academy, if they want to, they could even flex away the Tristana right now, although you would want to keep her later for the Ezreal for the bot lane flex.
I think that's what you do. And Set being open right there, I think this is a good call coming in from TSM Academy because Lee Sin could go mid lane, Set can go mid lane. Both of them are flexible depending on what you want to be able to put into certain matchups. Makes a lot of sense to hold on to this as well. And even saying Lee Sin could go jungle, we've seen Hyper play that before, and Set can go support. There's so much that TSM still have to work for in this draft. Well, we know a lot more about what Evil Geniuses have to do because it's a lot less flexible.
I'm really curious to see what Evil Geniuses wants to do, though, because this combination of Lee Sin and Set is something we've seen a lot. It's amazing at finding team fights, at engaging. The ability to single out a member of the enemy team when they're immobile is bar none, especially when you can add these engaged supports like the Nautilus or the Leonas. But those aren't the members of Evil Genius Academy. You have an Akali, you have a Gwen. These are really tricky picks to just single out so easily and burst down. Same thing with the Xin Zhao. So we want to see what these hard engaged compositions will now do against champions that have no problem with you jumping into them. So I think TSM Academy wants to just double down on the wombo that they currently have, select more crowd control that is specifically relevant to picks like Akali and Gwen. Because normally a Nautilus would have value here in picking off those immobile picks. But within the time that Nautilus's ultimate activates, Akali can murder your AD carry, and then she'll get knocked up. So you want something that can peel faster. So something like a Leona, something that can be more effective at peeling, I think TSM wants to prioritize. And so by having the set this early, they can also flex that one into the support role if they feel like that's the best matchup they can get.
And right here with this Diana, it's kind of an expected pick even if Leona's left open. I'd be surprised if we had seen that pick up pretty quickly here by Evil Geniuses now that they've even locked this rel in. We pretty much can guess what Urson wants to play into that bot lane just because that is a very comfortable champion with this composition. You've got the AP threat already from the Diana. You just need to make sure that they're locked down for long periods of time and have it a lot more reliably than, like you mentioned, the Nautilus could provide.
It's actually the same combination that Cloud9 Academy played yesterday or last week. The Diana set Lee Sin into the top side. It's just so incredible at diving. It will be paired with an Alistar, though. So the Alistar does fulfill multiple roles for this team. The follow-up for the rest of the engage. Great peel, right? The quickness with which an Alistar can peel away a Gwen or even an Akali is bar none. You don't need to stun them. You can just punt them away. That works excellently. Follow up with the engage, but also the laning phase. Alistar versus Rel can cancel Rel's knockup with her W, so you get a lot of value in multiple avenues. It feels like TSM Academy have gotten a good last pick out of their composition, out of their red side for game one. Now it's going to be up to your son to deliver on the promise that saving last pick for support was worth it.
Especially when you look at what both teams do. They both want to be able to dive into the other. We look Kaisa, Rel, Akali, Xin Zhao, Gwen, they're all going to be diving in. But then same thing with TSM. Set, Diana, Lee Sin, Tristana, even Alistar can make sure that they're going to be these engaging forces. So this is really one of those coin flip kind of games just because both compositions are so similar to one another.
EG, though, is interested in coin flipping even more because you're not running a single flash between your solo lanes. Double ignite. They want to all in.
Wow.
They want to fight early. Yes, in the 1v1, you probably don't need the flash in these matchups. But when Diana shows up, when the Alistar roams to your lane, they are fodder, especially before level 6. So I think that TSM Academy can set their sights on the solo lanes with the Diana, with the set and leave for setup, and actually start to get an advantage. So TSM on the red side could potentially just say, listen, let's start our Diana in the bot side. Let's have the Alistar, the matchup that will be fairly useless at the level 1, have him leash for her, accelerate her so that she can finish the jungle route into the top side, and then start bullying the solo lanes and punishing them for their lack of flash.
And we'll see if they're going to be able to do that. We load up onto the Rift for the first game in this best of 2, week 4. Here, Evil Geniuses, TSM Academy, both of them want to be able to take this first game, make it so that it's going to be a lot easier for them to secure that 2-0. TSM Academy have been on the rise. We've already mentioned that before with Takeover on the roster, but Evil Geniuses have been consistent at making sure they get 1-1, so you just never know.
And the 1-1s are learning experiences. Learning experiences because you get both sides of what you want. You get the feel good of the win, but then you get the bad side of the loss that allows you to reflect and look into what went wrong that first game that you lost. So I do think that this is actually the way that you want to be improving. I mean, obviously 2-0 is amazing for your record, but a 1-1 start doesn't let you get complacent enough that you're not trying anymore, and it doesn't let you get sad that you kept going 0-2. So it's looking good for EG, and as we look to where Hyper will be starting his jungle route, looks like he will be going through the top side, ending in bottom lane. And this is the freedom that you have when your lanes all have setup, when you know that you can get a ganks wherever you want. Even though the Alistar will be shoved in, that might be exactly what you're looking for an avenue to set up his play, because if you can time Diana's jungle route with level 2 on Alistar, especially if Mystiques and Team Luke don't get to push the wave before they're around 3:15 mark, then you get a nice and easy flash pulverize into a kill.
As you were just, talking all smart, like, I was just watching Jojo Pion try to be able to get that empowered auto attack from his Q and not be able to get it because Takeover walked away and then gave the sad B emo. Just like, got completely distracted by that. Yeah, but going into this, I'm curious to see how aggressive we're going to see both these junglers play. Because like you said, Hyper is going to end up on the bottom side, but so is Contract. There is that potential that they try to fight over the Scuttle Crab. And if I recall, I do believe that Hyper should be able to clear a little bit faster than Xin Zhao. Well, no, actually, I'm sorry. I got it reversed. Contract is going to be on the top side, I just realized. And it is going to be actually Contract's the first one on the pool to be able to get a Scuttle Crab.
And well, if Contracts ends up going to the Scuttle Crab first in the top side here, it will be because their solo lanes have Ignite. And so Hanser and Takeover, they're not going to be able to play aggressive without the threat of the jungle since they are down the combat summoner. So that explains why EG is going to have Contracts up here. He should have priority from his lane, so it shouldn't be a problem to actually take these fights. Nice dash back from Jojo Pion.
Nice. Doesn't get the best trade in that one, though. Takeover was able to heal up, with just the passive lifesteal that you get as being a Lee Sin. But it was definitely a nice little flip to try to make the exchange a little bit more even. Now that Takeover's kind of pushed in mid, we saw that Contracts was trying to threaten, possibly looking for that. But it was a smart call by Takeover to then tap down to the bottom half, knowing his jungler is going to be on the bottom. Even if Contracts were to show up, it would be a 2v2 skirmish that might not necessarily pan out too well for either side.
And you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared to back up your jungler wherever you are, especially if you're trying to play these champions like the Lee Sin. The mobility in the mid lane is phenomenal, right? You want to take advantage of every strength that your champion has, and that is one of them.
Cheeky little cheater recall out of Takeover as well. Not even TPing back into lane, and he's still retaining nearly the same CS as Jojo Pion. This gives it massive advantage. Jojo Pion should be able to get back, but he has to burn the TP in order to do so. That way, it's not just going to be a frozen lane that he's not able to accomplish anything in.
He wants to burn this TP as well because his jungler is back on the map. You want to be collaborating with the timers of your own teammates. So you'd see that Contract started back on the bot side. He's now pathing to the Raptors top. So you want to take advantage of the times where Contracts will be available, not just to protect his own jungle, but if you need to group up with him, if there's an opportunity to go for either counter jungle or a gank somewhere, being synchronized with your back timings, especially with your jungler, is a great avenue to continue to look for those opportunities.
In the top lane, we kind of see a similar, almost reverse story from mid lane, where it was Tony Top who actually got the cheetah recall, having already gotten back with that Doran's ring. Then it's looking actually kind of difficult for Hansi right now because the wave is frozen pretty far. The Ignite has been burned, flashed away, and Contract's perfect placement to be able to help out. They try to see if they can get Tony Top, but it's going to finally be Hyper taking him down as he gets knocked up by the 3-point strike. Try and see if he can chase it down for himself. A double kill. There it is. They take 2 top lane.
That's a really big win, but engaging the bot lane.
Oh, what a headbutt pulverized combination coming from Yurson, but a nice kite back now with the Goomba Stomp to be able to get the reset if they wanted to. That was beautifully done out of Yurson to make sure they get that essential solo kill.
I think Mystiques and Team Luke must have suspected that Yurson had base. He had such a forward position in the foremost brush in the bot lane that it caught Team Luke just completely out of the guard. That was a really nice engage, and normally that just would never be allowed. The Rel would have been in the position to defend that. But we're going to take a look first at the top lane fight because Hanser's flashing away, but they have no vision in the river to actually see that they're going to get collapsed on by Evil Geniuses in time. He's focused on just escaping. Contracts with a nice counter gank, and Alistar just snuck down here and only could see in the minimap how he actually got there. But once the engage lands onto Team Luke, this is the strength of Tristana. You just need to get those autos onto the explosive shot to ensure that you can chase. There was no point flashing for Team Luke. He wouldn't have made it out.
And that's why he held on to it after all, saying, all right, I'm dead. It's all good. But it is going to be a big lead for TSM, even if they did lose the 2 kills topside. It means that Cody's son now having this kill, having a good lane priority over Kaisa, is going to continue to be scary, continue to be a threat, as now they've rotated your son into the mid lane with Hyper to try to see if they can tech out somebody. Mystique is the one in the middle, but now that they have Contract showing up and Takeover trying to get the kick, they got the kill in the backline, but it's support for support with Cody's son finally showing up. Contract has to use his Crescent Strike, but he goes back in on Takeover, flashing over the wall to be able to survive.
Oh, and that play happens because the supports who just died and engaged in the bot side needed to reset. They're both thinking, we need to reset and go to another part, help the map out. It's melee versus melee in the mid lane. Solo lanes are so aggressive this game that they see if they can make a move around the middle lane. And so your son is here, but Rel is also rotating up to the mid lane. Both supports grouping up with their junglers, try to make a play, resetting, and so that's what Takeover sees as an opportunity to engage. But Mystiques does a good job in buying time. He gets separated, but with Contracts being at the ready to engage, and Akali being level 6, same thing with Contracts, they're strong enough to take these fights. Takeover is very lucky that he didn't die on that one, because that would have been disaster. Instead, it's just a 1v1 trade of supports.
But wouldn't you give that over to Evil Geniuses? Because they didn't even have to call Team Luke into that play. Cody's son path all the way into that lane to try to be a part of the fight, but it was still an even 1-for-1.
It is an even 1-for-1, but I feel like because of the kills going over to exactly the mid laners, it's even more it only accelerates the mid laners. It doesn't really hurt anybody else. The AD carries are fine, the junglers are fine, so it's like kind of like a stalemate, a trading of gold exactly in the same places for each other. So the 1-for-1 by sticking to both kills in the mid lane and the support simply accelerates mid lane and puts now more responsibility on these two.
Love this call coming in from TSM. You can already see that the bot lane first to be on at the call to try to see if they can contest this Rift Herald, and they've got Jojopion as well. That means that Evil Geniuses, who have the 2 top side trying to be able to contest it, have to completely retreat because there is no fight here.
He goes in because he has no flash. There's no way out. The only way for him to engage and save his face checking is if Contracts and Gwen actually make it to him in time. So he has to engage, he has to use his ultimate and dash to try to survive that. The Lee Sin is a natural counter to the Akali here because it actually is revealing her. It is showing her on the map so she doesn't get to buy time.
Oh, top lane Contract was attempting to make a gank happen onto Hanser. They have a huge minion wave stacked up here, but it is also set. Not the easiest one to try to go for the tower dive. The needle work does work, though, and Contract, oh no, taken down with the help of the turret. 1-for-1 top lane.
It's still worthwhile. They got a lot of deny. They got more gold onto the Gwen, and she's going to be relevant in the side lanes 1v1. And Contract's ability to engage later on really won't be deterred by much. He's going to be relying on his ultimate to stay alive. So his life going down here in exchange for getting the solo lane ahead that is going to be trying to split push should work out for Evil Geniuses.
We'll be able to help him immensely. And we've even said how Tony Top, so far in the Academy split, is the only player to have actually gotten a win on this Gwen. So it might actually be a good thing to be getting all this extra gold into that top lane to be another carry threat. Now with that Rift Maker having been completed, should be able to completely dominate Hanser in this lane until he's able to complete his own Mythic.
She might even be able to dominate in case of a gank. With the Rift Maker available, the sustain is already going through the roof, so Hyper and Hanser have to keep in mind that this option might not even be available for a gank anymore. So if Tony Top can play through that, EG can open up the whole map, having a point of consistent pressure that TSM will not be able to answer. And so the rest of the team should also have to play defensively. So Evil Geniuses have to keep in mind somebody on their team is already very strong. If they are ignoring her ability to pressure the map and looking for plays themselves, they could get caught by TSM and they wouldn't even have their strongest member with them.
Contract wants to be able to steal these Krugs, but the whole time Hanser was actually taking him. Going to be stolen away just barely. Good knockup coming in. Hanser does have the shield. Oh no, he's already used it. He might not be able to survive. Contract gets a solo kill over Hanser topside.
Wow, great play from Contracts. You have the top side. We just were talking about how strong this side is. And Contracts, what does he do? He goes play to it. Now, EG and Team Luke, they have to play defensively. Hyper is answering with the Rift Herald, but a counter engages here.
What a Magnet Storm. 3-man Magnet Storm had to flash away to be able to survive. They got the exhaust onto your son. The charge was going to be able to help out, pick a double kill up for Cody's son. With all these turret plates too, unfortunate for the EG bot lane.
And Mystique thought he could catch Hyper within turret range. He thought maybe we have enough damage right now, but the itemization is just not there. They don't have the ability to survive these 2v2s that are so explosive. There is no heal on Team Luke, so this engage from Mystique and Team Luke, just a bit too aggressive there. They were having to play weak side. Gwen was already winning into the top side, so TSM popping the Rift Herald kind of tempted Team Luke and Mystique to try to answer it with more than just sitting back and watching the turret, and it works out for TSM.
And this is a TSM game style that they've played many a time, as Takeover is going to be able to get away from Contracts this time around. But we've seen this, where Hanser has been the one getting bullied in the top lane, but he picks champions like the set, where it's okay if he takes a couple of early deaths, because he is going to be useful when the team fights happen. Getting all this gold into Cody's son, now 3-0. In this bot lane with Kraken Slayer completed, it is going to be a game of Cody Sun versus Tony Top. Which one is going to be stronger in the team fights?
Well, right now, I'm going to be taking Cody Sun big time. 3-0 with the Kraken Slayer. He is incredibly powerful, and despite the solo lane from Evil Geniuses in Tony being able to hold his own, but first takeover,
nice kick.
Okay, he should be fine. But yeah, so Team Luke really just has to avoid the Tristana. So right now, TSM can just play around her, and we'll get to see where they match her. If they can just keep her into the mid lane, though, that does free up your son to start rotating into the side lanes. And this could be TSM using the advantage they've gained into the bottom lane to neutralize Tony Top, who keeps trying to look for these 1v1s, but if the lane always has 2+ members in it, he's not going to be able to be so aggressive and upfront here. Right now, though, there is vision for TSM. The wave just died. They're calculating inside. Do we actually have enough damage to take down this Gwen? She does have Rift Maker, but do we not have enough damage to burst her? I think it's probably safer not to go for it.
I think they're more worried about where Contract is. They have no idea where the Xin Zhao is, and if it is Contract and Tony Top together, there's no way they're going to be able to make it out with a good dive at all. They have to make sure they know exactly where this jungler is if they want to set up anything.
Yeah, especially on a play that wouldn't be immediate or quick to find. And no matter what, a kill onto the Gwen would take a long time. So the damage that they could do to their chances this game by messing up a dive like that, allowing Contracts to answer back with a lot of counter kills, would be too high. So they're just happy taking the reset. They're okay with this. They're not bleeding out, and they have a Fed carry. The Gwen, well, it's going to have to come down to Cody-san being able to play these fights out. He has delivered in the past with late game carry performances, so I'm not surprised that TSM feel confident in this one, considering they have many peel tools to deal with the Akali and the Gwen, and then Team Luke, who's far behind, shouldn't be a match for Tristana.
Plus, you mentioned it, you highlighted it so well in the early game, where the Flash is to be able to follow up on the side of Evil Geniuses. They have to make sure that this damage sticks early on, but there is still the peel potential out of Cody-san, out of your son, even out of Takeover to kick him away if they really have to.
Oh, now TSM, though, looking for the engage around the Rift Herald. Now, TP is coming in from behind, but EG can counter-engage and have a numbers advantage.
Your son went in by himself. 3 members going to be able to force out the Flash. Contract wanted to be able to chase back, but now they have the full engage onto the support, dragging him back in with Haunter in the middle of everybody. Huge shield and a huge ultimate coming in from Hyper to be able to pick up the kill. Trying to see if they can re-engage. Trying to take down. They've got a double kill for Tony Top, and he's burning. Here comes Cody-san for the reset. He's got it in the bag. He jumps on the head of Cody-san and looks for more. Team Luke is taken out of the equation, and that is an ace coming in from TSM.
It's an ace, and they're going to get the objective, and they're going to get mid-turret, and more gold is going over to Cody-san. The fight starts because EG sees the teleport from Haunter. They're thinking it's too far back. We have an opportunity to engage, jump on whoever we can, but the closest target was just the Alistar. He buys so much time for the team, takes the initial cooldowns of EG, and now their formation is split apart. Then TSM can re-engage with Haunter, with Takeover, and they have the better positioning, and they're able to just steamroll through the fight.
I mean, this kind of what we were just saying a couple minutes ago, that Haunter, you got a lot of attention in the early game, but he never really seems to mind it too much. He was able to get back into this game really easily. He was 1-3-1 there right before that fight. Now sitting 2, 3, and 5 on this set. Cody-san, with all the kills, they have set him up for success.
Yes, he really is. Now with the Phantom Dancer, he's doing a great job. He's an entire item ahead of Team Luke. And it's not like Team Luke is actually going with a more DPS build. In fact, we'll be going for the Collector, but Haunter does find Jojo, and Hyper is here. Akali's caught by herself.
Either. Oh no, this is not looking too good. You don't have the Flash to be able to escape. You tried to be able to get the dash, but it's still the easy pickup and kill for Hyper. This is kind of what we were saying. They had to be able to get these kills early on since they don't have Flash.
TSM can go for these plays because if you note, the control ward at Try is still the same ward that Hansu TP to. The earlier vision they had from the Dragon is still up, so they have control of the red side jungle. Jojo Pion is walking into it and having not cleared out that prior vision, so TSM have no problem rushing in after the Akali, knowing that there's nobody coming to help and that their own members can flood the rest of the red side and back up just in case they've missed a spot in darkness.
Here comes the wrecking crew of TSM. Turret taken bot lane, turret taken mid lane, all for one Rift Herald that Contract is able to pick up. They have lost so much from that play around the Dragon that TSM have been able to completely take for themselves.
It's a single play driven to the victory. This is the mark of the best teams. It's not something that TSM, I think, can tout just yet, but just seeing the execution of it within a single game is something that you really want to see. A single mistake being able to punish time and time again and get more value out of it than most teams. It's something that is very tricky to find because often you're going to be holding yourself back, thinking that, oh, well, we should reset. We should give more credit to the opponent. And oftentimes it's giving too much credit to the opponent that actually keeps your team from being proactive in the playmaking. TSM here is just aware of how powerful they are and has no fear in marching forward into EG's side of the map.
None at all. This team right now is looking a lot more solid, and this is kind of their story as an organization here for TSM Academy. spring split started off weak. Didn't look so hot. When it came to Proving Grounds, that's when they were able to turn up the heat. Seeing something a little bit earlier here in the summer split as they started off the first 2 weeks really rough. Week 3 looking better, and here week 4, again, we don't want to bring the horn a little too early, but they're looking pretty hot so far, especially when you look at how they've been able to play and how they consistently are able to get this gold into Cody-san.
I think especially with the late addition of Takeover, it's impressive to see how quickly the team has been able to turn around. It's something that I think is more common than it was in the past with these lineups that seem to be, at the very least, aware of what they want from a mid laner and just are not currently getting it, or just from any other role. And so knowing exactly what they want but not having it in the player means that if they find the player that actually fulfills that need, the team is already primed to be able to fit together that missing piece and execute on whatever play they always dreamed of being able to pull off better than most teams that just started the LCS split from the first week. Year's contracts getting caught, and there's no one to help.
Wait, Jojopian's nearby. Nice headbutt pulverized combo to make sure they have contracts in the bag, and Hyper's able to take his 3rd kill of the game, while Takeover on the other side finds Jojopian looking for the kick, but finally it's going to be the dash away, trying to see if they can re-engage on Takeover, especially since Tony Top had burned the TP, but it's a 4v5. Even if Takeover is low, it's going to be difficult. Magnet Storm, it might not be enough though. It's Cody-san trying to be able to get away, but they kicked him off and shut him down. They got the kill on the carry they needed to, but can they be able to pick up anyone else? Tony Top is trying to be in the middle of everyone with the needlework. He wasn't able to get enough damage. 1-for-1 trade, technically a 2-for-1 favoring TSM, but the shutdown was picked up for Jojopian.
EG will take that. You just got that shutdown, just like you mentioned, and giving that gold over to the Akali is nothing to scoff at. It felt like TSM got cocky. They felt like they could corral Evil Geniuses in that play. Yursan hex stacking over, looking for the main combo, but they did not respect that Mystiques and the rest of EG would be primed for the counterattack. They knew there was no way out. If they were to try to take a fight on even terms running away, they would have lost that. A 4v5 when you have a fed Tristana on the enemy team is not a fight you want to be taking. So that was a good heads up play from Evil Geniuses to go for that play. Contracts does what he can to buy time. It really doesn't do a whole lot. And when Takeover commits here with his own teleport, TSM wants to keep going because they have that numbers advantage, but there's no longer the Lee Sin kick. He's very low, so it kind of feels like a 4v4. And so when they face check into the Rel, who has a great engage, you now have 2 members with really long range ultimates able to immediately isolate the most important target.
I think the bigger thing there too is how you talked about your son. Great engage, but not the peel. We need that peel if you want to be able to keep Cody-san alive. He had to use the rocket jump in a very awkward manner, trying to get towards Team Luke, but there's still follow-up. Jojopian's able to follow him wherever he goes as long as he's got that shuriken flip, and with that shutdown, this is given not a substantial amount of gold back to Evil Geniuses, but enough into the right people to now try to threaten around these objectives. As you can see, they're starting to get that vision that they had lost prior back.
And it's that vision that now will have to be focused around the Baron. The Tristana is too powerful. You've got a lot of sustain with the Lee Sin now with the Gore Drinker. So the vision that previously was fought over in the red side now has to be moved up. At the very least, we need to start seeing some Scryer's Blooms. You already have one on Team Luke. It's not active just yet, but that darkness around Baron is an opportunity for both teams to take advantage of the enemy's exact absence in vision. If they can just have a few, maybe 30 seconds without Baron, with waves pushed up, knowing where the enemy team is, both teams can successfully sneak this objective and just take over the game. I don't think TSM needs to rush into it. They're already in a winning position. They had one previous hiccup, but they still have a gold lead, very fed carries in a strong team fight. It's Evil Geniuses that have to keep in mind the potential of the Baron sneak if they want to stay relevant in this game.
Especially when you look at the items. You can see Hyper actually having a pretty good lead over Contract right now, having now completed that Rift Maker after already getting National Shoots 9 stacked on Darkseal. But then bot lane, we've already highlighted this many times, but we gotta do it again. Cody-san not having quite an item lead this time around, but having that DF sword over none on the side of Team Luke while still having the same amount of items is going to give TSM that bit of an advantage, so long as they can keep Cody-san or even Hyper alive.
Yeah, they should not have such a hard time doing that, keeping him alive. And we just saw Evil Geniuses group up into the mid lane, trying to take down that mid tier 1. It's very low, so if they maybe could have caught TSM basing out of rotation, they would have the opportunity to go for that. But more importantly, Tony Tup doesn't also have flash. So now it's really just going to be Jojo Pion split pushing down the bot lane. He has teleport, so he's going to be fine staying down here. Now we wonder, where will Tony join? His TP will be back up. The rest of Evil Geniuses, they don't have the composition to disengage quickly enough from an Alistar combo followed up by a Diana. So they probably have to stay more grouped up or be at the mercy of TSM botching their engage.
Nor do I think they even have the burst potential necessary at this moment to be able to take someone like Cody-san and take over or contracts down quickly enough. We can see 2 Serix gauges have been completed on TSM Academies, and as I had spoken, that BS Sword got converted into an Infinity Edge out of Cody-san, so even more of an advantage put into TSM. They have that 5,000 gold lead over Evil Geniuses, but they haven't really been able to make any more headway outside of the turrets they had gathered for themselves earlier on, while Evil Geniuses are probably going to be able to get a lot of this ambient gold that has been left up on the table. Taking the tier 1 bot lane, taking that tier 1 mid lane will get them that much closer to having a more even team fight.
That was a good push from Jojo Pion. We just saw earlier from the observers, the Akali push started all the way at her base. It was something that TSM saw, but in their interest to try to make a play around Baron, going for the larger swing, trying to take it out of the fences by grouping the set up with their team, seeing if they could catch someone. Because EG played that well defensively, they didn't give themselves an opportunity to be engaged upon. Set was now too late to make it to the bot side and actually defend that turret. So they got a little bit of gold from that one. It's going to be useful because it actually completes the Hourglass for Jojo Pion. It also gets him the Blighting Jewel, has a little bit of healing reduction. So he is geared up to be very effective with this fight. They now just have to keep him alive, or more importantly, he has to make sure that he isn't entirely peeled for. That's the mark of a truly great assassin. Can you find the angles? Can you wait out the cooldowns of the enemy before going in? Because otherwise, your job is nearly impossible.
This is a difficult composition to do that into, too. Set, Lee Sin, Diana, Tristana, Alistar, all these champions have an ability to peel back Jojo Pion and make sure that this Akali is not going to be able to really accomplish anything unless he waits, unless we actually see that patience coming in from this mid laner for Evil Geniuses.
EG knows that there's no vision from TSM, but Takeover just sees it. Now TSM is going to go for it, although Hanser is doing the dragon. Right. TSM can engage a 4v5 here.
There's a TP. TP in behind, too. They're going to notice it. Nice knockup comes in from your son. Can they get the engage from Hanser? Going to look for the drag back, but Jojo Pion is on top of Cody's son. Goes golden to be able to survive. Nice cut coming in from Takeover to try to see if they could peel back for him, but now he goes golden himself. The fight continues with Hyper taken down by Team Luke. This fight is completely split. And the dive back in, the jump away. The Goomba Stomp comes in from Cody's son, and he's going to be able to dive back in onto Team Luke to finally pick up the ace.
That was so close there. TSM using the flash combo from the Alistar to try to go in. They wanted to combo everything together, and it leaves Cody-san entirely exposed. He actually got tagged by the Akali and lived to tell the tale. Let's take a look at how this played out, because we have a lot of individual outplays that ended up making a big difference here, because when Yersen goes in, Hanser isn't entirely there. There isn't an immediate combo. Mystiques tries to re-engage, and then Cody with a critical stopwatch to stay alive, buys time from the Akali. Takeover is there to peel him, and that makes all the difference. Team Luke is already split up on the top side because Diana routed him that way, so he's not able to assist with significant auto attacks on the side of the fight that's over the ledge, and it all works out for TSM. That was dangerously close. I don't think they'll be able to pull that one off another time because the stopwatch won't be available. But because of how far ahead they are, I think Cody can afford to go with the Guardian Angel, which was the itemization he wants to go for with the stopwatch, and make sure that the initial burst of Akali is not enough to spell an end to the team fight.
Yeah, because that was a wild team fight, but I focus on Cody-san because how pivotal he was, and man, did he prove it in that fight. And if they can get this pick onto Jojo Pion, they take away that assassin tool that they might be able to rely on, that they have been relying on consistently. He tries to jump away, he even gets stunned up, flashed on by Hanser, dragged back in by the Showstopper to be picked up and given more. Oh no stacks there anymore for Hyper. He already sold the Dark Seal, but a pick like that is great.
They have no problem committing everything to that one because they know EG won't team fight them without the Akali. But Tony Top's doing a good job still pushing. He's going to be able to get a tier 1 here. He knows Takeover can't 1v1 him, so that overextension from TSM for a single kill might actually not come in their benefit. They're so far away from escorting these waves into a position where they can auto-attack these turrets, and by now, well, Jojo Pion's going to be already back up. It's 15 seconds for his spawn, and there's that ward in the mid lane if he actually wants to go for a flank. No tier 2 already in the mid lane, so that single pick might have actually been just a big juicy bait from EG to stop the power of this Baron push.
Perhaps haven't we seen this out of Evil Geniuses before? They put Tony Top on split push duty, the Jax is the one I keep thinking of, and they're able to fall back on to that gameplay where they can get gold, stay relevant. But if they get picked off like this, if Contracts is taken off, that is a lot of damage that they have lost. So they're trying to get the re-engage with the Crescent Strike, they're going to be able to pick up a kill. That huge burst of damage, and now with the Magnet torn to the backline, Hyper trying to see if he can drag back anybody in. They're going to be able to get the shutdown onto Hyper, but now you can see that Cody's trying to get the damage, finally going to be able to get the explosive charge, and jumps away from Jojo Pion. He will be able to respawn with the help of the Guardian Angel as they pick up an ace.
They're going to be able to end the game right here. Didn't even need to siege into the mid lane. Evil Geniuses, intent on defending their own jungle, meet their demise, finding every member of TSM ready to fight, and they close out the game in 30 minutes, opening up with a banger at the start of Academy Week 4.
And man, this is a clinical gameplay style out of TSM Academy. They play around the bot lane. They play around Cody-san being that ultimate carry. They've given him all the gold. He's able to get all the damage to, what was that, 8, 1, and 9 on that Tristana with the Guardian's Angel to make sure that he survives so they can easily end the game. I feel like we're seeing the prime form of TSM Academy now.
I think they still have a big ways to go. We're seeing the potential, right? The potential of that prime form. It's really relevant to the meta champions as well. That's something that I really like about what we've seen out of them. When they're picking the champions that we know are strong right now, synergistic with each other, and playing it accordingly, they're going to look so much better. And I think that's what we just saw. Being able to make moves around the bot side and continue to drive that advantage home into a victory, I think was critical. And the play that comes to mind was the Rift Herald move from Hyper, where they actually got 2 kills into the bottom lane. I think that the EG bot lane can look at that moment and think this was where we had to take the knee, just accept that we're not going to be able to make this play and give up the turret, know that we're going to be trading objectives. But they saw something. They thought they could engage and try to engage, and they paid for it dearly. Those 2 kills really did a number in putting Cody-san so much far ahead than Team Blue.
Yeah, it was definitely that play that led right into the the Dragon right after that. It was just pretty much all the dominoes falling from that moment. I completely agree with you. For now, we're going to toss it to a break. When we come back, we'll have more replays and be able to dissect that game a little bit further. So stick around, we'll be back.